You're listening to episode 5 of A Whole New You podcast. Today's show is all about self-care. We'll describe what that means for Kim and Laurie and what it might look like for you. We'll also give you some quick and easy tips for getting in self-care on a daily basis. Welcome to A Whole New You podcast. I'm your co-host, Kim Maravich. I'm a registered nurse and author of the book 360 Health. I'm joined by my dear friend, Laurie Biddle, a health and wellness coach certified through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Our show exists to inspire and empower women to take charge of their health with weekly tips and conversation about self-care, mindset, nutrition, fitness, and clean living. Please keep in mind that the material provided in this podcast is intended as general information only and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. We're thrilled to have you here. Let's get to the show. So today we're talking self-care, and I thought we would start off by looking at the definition of self-care. So I looked up what the English Oxford Dictionary had to say about self-care, and it said it's the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. And for me, that really, really resonated because right now, I would say in my life, this is the most stress I've felt ever, and which is a lot to say because I've gone through schooling, college, nursing school, my master's in teaching. I taught school. I was a nurse in a hospital. But there's something about taking care of little ones and being their go-to person and having to do everything for them that is so stressful. And I think it's equally stressful because I don't get the self-care that I would like to be getting. So Laurie and I are going to be talking about what self-care means for both of us. And we're at a little bit different stages in our lives as far as raising kids goes. Her kids are a little bit older than mine and are in school. And so her practices look different than mine. So let me share with you just a little bit about what my ideal self-care day would look like. And you'll probably laugh at this a little bit because some of these are so basic. And I have written on my notes basic in bold, uppercase letters because it's just so silly, but this sounds like a dream to me. So if I could have my ideal self-care day, this is what it would look like. I would sleep in, and that would be after not waking up during the night because I wake up during the night with my 3-year-old all the time. That would be a dream for me. Then I would get up and work out, just something at home, either go for a walk or I love to do DVDs or streaming videos at home. And then I would get a shower, which I don't get a shower. Laurie's laughing. I don't get a shower. I try to get a shower every day, but it's usually at night. Before I go to bed, which is really not my preference because I kind of feel icky all day long. But there are days, I'll be honest, that I don't shower every day because my husband travels and I just might not get enough alone time. So getting a shower would be a big thing. And doing my makeup. I don't love to do makeup or have it on, but there's something about putting on makeup that makes me feel put together. And I think that's kind of what I'm lacking right now because I am literally in yoga pants or sweats all day long with my hair pulled back. And, just again, it goes back to feeling kind of yucky. So doing my makeup makes me just feel like a little bit more confident, I guess. And then I would love to get some uninterrupted time at home to work. I really love writing and being on my computer, whether it's, blogging or doing stuff for the podcast. And it's really hard. I have to do it in chunks right now. Usually when my kids are sleeping or maybe they're eating lunch and I go over to my computer, I have like this makeshift desk stand that I put up on my kitchen counter and just type away. But to have uninterrupted time would be awesome. And I also love to read. So if I had some time to either read, self-help books or fiction, I would love that. And I also mentioned going for a long walk, but that would be nice. I could just, take a break in the afternoon and go for a long walk. It would be even more awesome if that was on a beach somewhere and I could just lose myself in the sound of the sea waves. And I also like to listen to podcasts. So, I don't live by a beach. So if I do go for a walk, I love to listen to podcasts. So that's, why I wanted to create one, because I love them so much. But just to put in some earbuds and kind of lose myself, walking and listening to some good content, that would be just a nice dream for me. Then I would love to go out to a nice dinner, because that would mean I didn't have to cook. And because cooking, while it can be therapeutic, sometimes it's stressful for me because I always have little ones right there. And my 3-year-old likes to pull on the oven door, and I'm always afraid he's going to burn himself. And I'm just distracted, and I'm trying to get it done in like 5 minutes so that I'm not spending too much time in the kitchen. But it would be really nice for someone to cook for me for once. And then I would spend some time in the evening hanging out with my husband. We joke that we feel like we're passing in the wind or in the night. He'll stay up late, and I am crashing early right after the kids go to bed. But it would just be nice for he and I to spend some time together, maybe watch a TV show together, or just be able to talk. That would be something that is kind of rare for us. Then I can't forget about my kids, because I do love them. I've been leaving them out of the equation for all of this. But I would just like to snuggle with them for a little bit and have them behave and be nice to each other, and maybe even give each other hugs and kisses, and just be able to put them to bed and without a fight. That would be great too. Put them to bed without a fight and kiss them, and then they would sleep the whole night. So that's so basic. And I know Laurie's over here like probably laughing, but she's going to share with you, what her self-care day would look like.
Well, I can totally relate to all of that, Kim. Lived it, and I can appreciate it. Absolutely. And I also think that, the stress of having children, though there's so much joy in it, it never goes away. It just changes, so I'm sure we have moms of all ages listening in all stages of life with children. And I can say a lot of the, little kids stuff that is so hard, like the thought of not being able to take a shower without someone screaming, crying, or knocking on the door is just so daunting. Or to go to bed at night and not know when you're going to be woken up again. I remember those days, with little kids, and it is so super hard. But, it just changes. It doesn't completely go away, because now, especially for people who work outside the home, you are not home all day, and then you come home and you cook a quick meal, hopefully. And a lot of people run through a drive-through because this is what, our culture has created. But our kids have places to be. And so you become like the chauffeur all night, every night, running them around and doing the things really that your kids are responsible for at this point. So, and the going to bed early, I love going to bed early. That is a dream of mine, and I do it as often as I can. But the reality is I have a middle schooler who has a lot of homework, and sometimes she's up till 11 doing her homework. And I feel like an awful mom saying, hey, good luck with that. I'm going to bed. So, it's hard work being a mom. But, one thing I've learned in all these years, and this is kind of a skill that you have to work on at some point, is just listening to myself and, really getting in touch with myself and what I need that particular day. And though we all love to fantasize, and I love Kim's fantasy day, because it's great to think about like having a whole day to do whatever you want. But the reality for all of us is it's probably just moments. Mm-hmm. We have moments to kind of work in some self-care, because unless we just seriously get on a plane and leave our house,
which I want to do, by the way.
And maybe we'll do that after this. We'll wrap up the podcast and hop on a plane. It is so great to daydream about these things. But yes, so, unless you do that, it's really just kind of stealing moments to take care of yourself throughout the day. And, for me, again, it changes day to day. One day I love to cook. As Kim mentioned, it can be so therapeutic, and it's exactly what I need that day. And another day, I really just need a break from cooking. And the thought of cooking makes me want to like crawl under a rock. And so I know to take care of myself that day, I need to give myself a break from cooking. And a day that it's feeling like, it'll be super therapeutic, I need to make some space to cook. So again, it's just getting in touch with yourself very much. And I've found, since I have started working at home and my kids are in school, like quiet and solitude is something that I need. And I can tell you a lot of people would probably go crazy with the amount of quiet and solitude that I have found, to be so luxurious. But those are my moments, especially being an entrepreneur now. Those are my creative moments. They're my inspired times, when I can just quiet the noise and, just get in touch, like I said, with myself and my business. And that's where I have some big ideas. But that being said, I also need some time to shut my mind down. We all need that. And I find that, like we have talked about right now, we're recording, it's Christmas. I love my Hallmark Christmas movies. And I get taken away by the storyline of that movie and, or Netflix or any kind of mindless TV. I need that sometimes because it's the only time my mind's not going and I'm not thinking about something. Or taking care of someone. So, guilty pleasure, I guess, just to lose myself in a fictional book or a movie. And then getting out in nature, I think, is a really big thing. If I can just step away from my life for a couple minutes and force myself to get out there, all the problems that seem so big and the stressors that seem so big, when you step outside, you see that big sky and you see, the trees and you just kind of realize that the world is so much bigger than your issues and your problems in that moment. It's just a great way to catch some perspective. And I used to try to do that as often as I could in my corporate job, is just walk outside and breathe in some fresh air and regroup. So just something really important to do. Even, we're heading into winter and it's harder to get outside, but that cold air, that's good too, because it kind of wakes you up and it's very invigorating. And we talked about, some cold exposure things in the last episode and how it boosts immunity. So there's also some other benefits to that as well. And, another thing that I found when I worked my very stressful corporate job, I would come home and I would just binge on food. I think I thought my self-care was just soothing myself with food, which ultimately was just making me feel so awful. And I have also kind of turned around that old bad habit into fueling my body with something really healthy. That has become such a form of self-care for me, is just stopping and eating something, that instead of, I guess I've redefined good. Like when I used to say I'm going to eat something good, it was really something that was loaded in sugar or grease or, those comfort foods. But now when I think of eating something good, it's like, drinking some juice that I know all those nutrients are going directly, into my system and just giving me that energy boost and making me feel good. So, I just feel differently about food and using food as self-care. So that's just kind of a little interesting perspective. And do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think that sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Laurie, but I think that that's so true. When we're really not taking care of ourselves in the sense of like self-care, just doing like what, taking some moments to breathe and to regroup. I did the same thing, just that binging on comfort food. I think we all fall into that trap, and that's why it's really important, because then when you're doing that, it might feel great in the moment, but then you have all of these negative side effects that happen afterwards, whether you're bloated, from the sodium or the carbs or, the water retention, or you just feel guilty about it, and then it ends up backfiring. So when we can try to take care of ourselves in other ways, then we do want to eat. I do find that. I agree with you, Laurie. I just wanted to say that. You feel like you want to eat healthier when you're really taking some time for yourself too.
Yeah, and to touch on that point of guilt, a thing that I used to really consider self-care was going and getting my nails done or getting my hair done or getting a massage. And one thing I've noticed lately, since I have kind of stepped away from my corporate job, I'm not and moved into this entrepreneurial role, I'm not making the money I used to make. And so those types of activities have become a little stressful for me because I go and do it and I think, oh, I'm pampering myself or taking care of myself. And then afterwards, maybe there's this little ping of guilt that when I see the bill for something like that, or just making the time to do it. When you have little kids like Kim, I remember at that point, it's such an ordeal to make that space to do that. You have to have someone watch your kids, and it becomes stressful trying to get out the door to go get your nails done, which is kind of counterproductive to self-care. It's finding these things that aren't causing any stress and anxiety, because we have enough of that going on. Self-care is to help alleviate some of that. So just something to kind of be aware of as you're trying to implement this. I'm sure it's going to be, a lot of moms, especially coming into the new year. These are our resolutions. And so just really good stuff to kind of to keep in the back of your mind is, am I doing something for self-care that's producing anxiety? Binge eating, we just said can happen, this anxiety that comes from it. And also some of these traditional methods of self-care aren't really filling us up. So just, again, something to be super aware of. And I don't know, Kim, you have something to add on that?
No, I just think that, like Laurie was saying, when you're really, really busy, sometimes it's almost like you're trying to do self-care, but it just adds to the stress. And
yes.
so
it's another item on your to-do list. That's tough.
Yeah. Right. And then it's not self-care. And I think, regardless of your busyness, sometimes, probably a lot of us are on a budget. I know for me, because I'm not really raking in the dough either. Like Laurie said, when you're starting off as an entrepreneur, and, my husband is the breadwinner, but he pays for everything, the mortgage and all the stuff for the kids. And I kind of feel a little bit guilty. I do have to get my hair done, but gosh, the cost keeps going up. It's exorbitant anymore. So it does stress me out. So if you are on a budget, today we are going to be sharing some tips of things that you could do that make sense if you're on a budget. If you're time crunched, you work a full-time job, or you're like me and just don't have time to yourself, there are some quick tips that we can give you that are kind of fun, just things maybe you didn't think of that could be considered self-care, and that might be fun for you to try out, and that are quick and hopefully don't add to the stress of your day. Laurie, do you want to add anything before we start going through the list?
Yeah, so to my point about the going to the salon and getting a facial or getting my hair done, I found that here at home, if I just add a scoop of collagen to whatever I'm drinking, my water, my tea, my coffee, and my smoothie, that is doing some real good things for my hair and my skin. And, it didn't cost nearly as much as the salon, and I didn't have to block off 3 hours of my schedule. And, I just did something really nice for myself and my beauty routine.
Hey guys, I'm gonna plug for a second collagen, because I won't name a company per se because we're not sponsored by anybody, but I've been taking collagen for, my youngest is 3.5. So for at least 3.5 years. And I have to say it has made the biggest difference in the thickness of my hair. Some people question whether it's good for skin or not, because, your stomach has to break down with the stomach acids. But if you're using collagen peptides or hydrolyzed collagen, it is thought to, work despite having been digested by your body. So I will tell you as a firsthand testimony that my hair is way thicker than it ever was from taking the collagen. And one of the reasons I started taking it, well, it's good for your gut health, but I used to be a runner. That used to be a form of self-care for me. And I really can't do that anymore. But my joints started really aching because of the running, and the collagen has helped tremendously. They used to crack all the time too, every time I bent down, and it doesn't do that anymore. So I agree that something as simple as using collagen is self-care, and it doesn't take any time. You just, go on to Amazon and buy it and then add it to your coffee or whatever you want to drink. So Laurie, is it okay if we get into the list? Okay. So these, again, are just some kind of quick and fun things that you could try to incorporate into your day. If they resonate with you, great. You can try them. If they don't, then, you can just say, that's not for me. But I saw an Instagram post a couple weeks ago about a girl she's kind of in the same boat, had little ones at home. And she, in her picture, was, sitting there with a towel on her wet hair and a charcoal mask on. And she was like, this is what self-care looks like for me right now. And I thought, that's kind of cool. And she was, listing a few quick and easy things that you could try. And I thought, that's a great idea for a podcast episode. So here we go. Here are some things that you could try at home that are quick, and most of them are pretty cheap too. So one is taking a bath, a hot bath. Epsom salts are great. We've talked about that in previous episodes for detoxifying. Laurie knows all about adding essential oils to the bath too. And what are some that are good for a bath to add into a relaxing bath?
Well, lavender is always a favorite of mine. So that is like the oil of everything calm. So I would definitely suggest lavender, diffusing it in the room. You can also add it to your water. One thing that I do think about with baths is, oils and water don't mix. So you will have some little drops of oil floating on your water, and lavender is one of those that is super calming to your skin. It can be applied without a carrier oil. So it's probably one of the best ones for the bath, but some you want to be careful with because you could just be kind of lowering down into a blob of oil because it's not going to completely mix in, even if you pour it in when you're pouring the water in. So I would stick with lavender for the bath. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay. I don't know if you know about this, Laurie, but I bought I think, is it Dr. Teal's brand Epsom salts, and it's lavender infused. Like I don't know. I don't know if it's essential oil or.
Yeah, I never know. I typically try to buy everything plain if I can, fragrance free. I buy my Epsom salts plain, and I add my own oils because I use oils that I know are from a company that I can trust, and they're responsibly sourced, and you're getting the full benefit. Sometimes you do have to kind of watch out for some of these things that are scented because they can be synthetic. So even though the Epsom salts are pulling out all those toxins, if they're adding, synthetic scents and whatnot into the Epsom salts, then you're welcoming that back in and you're soaking in it, which is, again, one of those counterproductive things.
Okay, that makes sense. I had bought some, I actually put them into, this is not my self-care, it's for my sons, but I put, they will get a bath in our big soaker tub in our bedroom or bathroom off the bedroom, and I will put Epsom salts in there. I did buy the lavender scented ones, but it's pretty strong. The scent is pretty strong, and they don't like it. So, but the regular ones, that was in the hopes of getting them to relax, which would be a form of self-care for me because then they would go to bed. But if you like a bath, that's a great way to relax. I already talked about doing your makeup, how that makes me feel put together. Maybe it does for you, and if it doesn't, then go, clear-faced. Maybe that's a better thing for you. One thing that I've gotten into the habit of since I've been a beauty counter consultant, because I've like to try out all the skincare regimens, but I like actually having a regimen for what I'm doing at night, because I have to wash my face anyway. Even if I don't have makeup on throughout the day, you just want to get off the grease and grime from the day. But I like just taking like a few extra minutes to do a little regimen. So I wash my face. I like to use charcoal soap, but I'll wash my face, and then I will put on like a serum, which kind of preps your skin. And then I'll do the moisturizer and an eye cream. Sometimes I throw in a toner after I've washed my face, but that makes me feel like I'm, doing just a little bit extra for my skin. And I do think it improves the quality of my skin too. So I suffer from rosacea, and when I have flares, and sometimes it flares because of stress. A lot of times it's from certain foods that have histamines in them and all that stuff. But when I can really kind of be devout with the regimen that I'm using, I do feel like my skin looks better. even despite having rosacea. Another thing that I got for my birthday a couple weeks ago was a jade roller, and I brought it over to show Laurie. And I was going to talk about it that episode, and I forgot. But it's a jade roller is something that you roll over your skin. So it has it's a handheld device, and on one end there's a bigger roller, on the other end there's a smaller roller, and you're supposed to put it on, a clear skin. So either like no makeup, or you could have just put moisturizer on, because it's supposed to help get the moisturizer into the pores better. But you roll it across your face and up, and it's supposed to look like kind of like a natural form of Botox. And I do, temporarily, of course, but it does feel really, really soothing. I've even heard of people putting it in the refrigerator so that it's extra cold. And that would be nice for the morning when you wake up and you're kind of puffy. And again, that takes no time. You could just go to the fridge and pull it out, and you're just rolling under your eyes. They talk about rolling it down your neck to help with lymphatic drainage. And mine came also with, I'm not sure how you say it, a gua sha scraper, but it was in the same package. And I think that one is it's like a pink crystal or quartz, but it's kind of the same effect. So you kind of brush upwards on your face with this, scrape upwards. And it's when I say scrape, it's very gentle. You're not, causing any damage to your skin, and it's just like a smooth surface. But that really feels so good. And I mean, you could do it while you are doing stuff with your kids. You can have your roller in one hand and doing something in the other hand. But that to me is so relaxing. I mean, it's best if I can do it with my eyes closed, but such a nice little device that you might want to try out. Exercise, of course, is really, really good for you. Exercising, just helps to reduce stress, which is what self-care is all about. So whatever kind of exercise you like. Yoga, of course, is the epitome of relaxation. Going for a long walk, like Laurie and I were talking about. But whatever you can do. Sometimes, if people like getting your heart rate up, breathing heavy for a little bit, then do that. One thing I would say is that if you are under stress and you're thinking about, implementing self-care, probably going out and, doing marathon training or, long triathlon things. I mean, unless you're really in great condition, that can really wear down your body and cause added stress. It can increase your cortisol levels, which isn't good either. So gentle forms of exercise are kind of what we're talking about here for self-care. Saying no is one, and I know Laurie wants to add something about this, but wow, that is a powerful, powerful tool. It costs nothing. It takes no time. And I think we have to get over ourselves and over the fact that we might be disappointing people. People will forgive you. And all you have to do, you don't even have to explain, but if you feel the need to explain, you just say, right now I am so overbooked and I'm really under a lot of stress and I can't do this. So saying no to things that you have said yes to in the past can be so helpful in just, preserving that sanity for yourself. What do you think?
Yes, preserving sanity is very important. And, saying no creates space for self-care. And it's the only way that you're going to have space for self-care. Even if it's saying no to yourself, saying no to your kids, saying no to outside pressures, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in it all. And there's so many demands, especially on us as women. The possibilities are endless of all the things that you could get involved in. So I guess we just have to be realistic with our time and not be too proud to say, hey, I've got too much on my plate, which I know I always struggled with. I wanted to be the woman who could do it all. And I did for a lot of years on the outside. On the inside, I was really struggling. So I really took a couple years and got my no muscles really strong, just setting boundaries and saying no. And at first it felt awful. I'm going to be really honest. If it did not feel good to have to say no, or to have to say, in my mind, I thought it was saying I'm weak and I can't handle all this. But really, it was making me so much stronger and it was so empowering. So it was just kind of reframing that. But as aware as I am about, the need to say no and the need to create space, I got myself into a little pickle last week. And after the fact, I look back on it and I know I could have done some things differently. And I guess that's probably the beauty of all of this, is that we're in control. If our life is running us, it's based on, most of the time, some choices that we've made. And we always have the power to redirect and kind of take back control of our days. So, I'll just share a little bit about my week last week, because it's Christmas time, it's the holidays, the demands are endless, the activities are endless. And I've been on, if you do follow me on social media, you probably have seen that I've been on this big mission to simplify. And this year I set out to simplify Christmas, which is kind of a joke because when you're the woman, there's a lot of things that need to be done for Christmas. And if you don't do them, Christmas doesn't happen. So that's been very eye-opening for me this past week, just to kind of roll with that. But it's really just all the extra activities on top of that. And, something I was saying to Kim earlier when she came today is that I got real comfortable with saying no for myself. So I did not organize a lot of these things. I didn't volunteer for a lot of the things that we went to last week, but I said yes a lot for my kids. Oh, yes, they'll play their instrument in the hall. Oh, yes, they'll be in the Christmas program. Oh, yes, we'll make cookies at the church. And oh, yes, they'll serve soup. And, it's all these great things. But we are surrounded by great things. And if we take advantage of every single one of them all the time, we are going to bury ourselves. So, I looked back at last week, and there were definitely some things that maybe we should have stepped back from and been a little more realistic with our time, because even though those were great things for my kids to do, and, we always think it's good for them and they want to do it. But I can tell you, by the end of the week, they were just as exhausted as I was. And I don't really think it was good for anybody. So we're going to approach this week a little differently and see how we feel. But, I guess the main point is just remembering that, we're driving this train. So we can make different choices to have the outcome be different and not feel so stressed and overwhelmed all the time.
Yeah, I think it is so hard around the holidays, especially. But also, it happens to us, and you kind of live and you learn. And I know, Laurie said she's learned from last week and just kind of the stress. So, maybe it's just that you give yourself grace, and next year things are a little bit different. And that's okay too. I mean, we all have to learn what our threshold is, I guess. And you can only do that by going through it. All right. So what else is on the list? Next, I had reading an inspirational book or fiction. I had mentioned that before. One thing I was going to mention, and we can put this in the show notes. I was going to mention it later, but this kind of ties in right now. There is a man, Neil Pasricha. He's done a TED Talk. I think the TED Talk was called The 3 A's of Awesome. And he also has I think the book is called The Book of Awesome. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the title. We'll link to him in the show notes. But I was listening to a podcast in which he was talking about there were 3 things that you could do that were guaranteed to increase your happiness. He's a Harvard-trained, I don't know if he's a psychologist or, what his background is exactly, but he has done, like I said, TED Talk, and he's all over YouTube as well. But one of the things he says, one of the 3 things that you can do each day is to read fiction. There's something about getting lost in fiction, probably kind of like similar to what Laurie was saying about the Hallmark movies. So if you're not a reader, then, watch a Hallmark movie or watch a good show on TV. But reading fiction has been shown to increase happiness. And he did mention that it's about like getting out of yourself and getting lost in another world and kind of creating a story in your head, which is always good to just kind of give your brain a break in that way. Another thing is having a gratitude journal. Now, I'm going to tell you, for me, this is like a double-edged sword, because I have a gratitude journal and I keep it on my nightstand. But I'm going to be honest, there are days I look at it and think, oh, I don't really want to write in this right now. Just because like maybe I do just want to turn on the TV. When I do write in the gratitude journal, I feel better, and it does help you to reflect. And he actually mentions that. Neil Pasricha mentioned that. That's another one that he was talking about, is just he recommended journaling about one good thing that happened that day. And I think, when you can just write about one thing, he recommends doing it for 20 minutes. But I think if you can even just bullet point some things that happen, if I know I don't have to write sentences and I just put a bullet point like, my son didn't have a tantrum today, or, I got cuddles from the boys, or just something really, really basic. I think that does help to reflect on the good things that happen in your day versus like the stressful things. So just, you can do a few bullet points or just write down one memory from the day. I think that can be helpful, and you don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. Along those lines, prayer and meditation can be really helpful. Meditation is not something I do right now. It's pretty hard to get in. Although I do like an app, it's called the Calm app, and they have different, I know there are a lot of other apps out there too, and they're kind of escaping my mind right now, but there are meditations that you can kind of listen to. They're more guided, so that, because I think if I'm sitting in solitude with just my thoughts, I don't know about you, Laurie, but I get distracted. Do you get distracted too?
Yeah, because like I was saying, those are my inspired moments. So anytime I have quiet around, I have to have a notebook around, because I come up with all these ideas and it's great. And again, especially the business I'm in now, I need that, but it's not really mindless and quiet. It's really kind of work, because work has become such a big part of who I am. And those quiet moments, I have all these big ideas, but I keep a notebook nearby and write them down.
Yeah, I like that too. I think that helps to take some of the stress off when you can do that. But yeah, so anyway, meditation for me, unless it's guided, I can't really do it. But some of those apps have meditations you can do in like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, which I could like lock myself in the bathroom and maybe do that. But prayer is something I feel like I kind of do throughout the day. And, sometimes it is like, God, help me get through this because I'm at my wit's end. But other times it is just like, in my mind, I am saying just a quick thank you for whatever, for the sunshine in the middle of winter, or that we were able to get in the car smoothly without, a tantrum or whatever. So taking some time for that it is a form of self-care, because it changes your mindset. Another thing that changes your mindset are random acts of kindness. And this doesn't have to be something big, and it doesn't have to be something that costs money. I mean, of course, it's nice to send a charitable gift to somebody and do something nice for a neighbor, but it could be something simple as just smiling, emailing a friend that you haven't emailed in a long time. Maybe, you always hear about people, and this again would cost money, but you don't have to do something like this. But my friend Kristen was telling me how she was in a Starbucks drive-through and somebody paid for her coffee, as she came up to the window. So you hear about that kind of stuff happening. And then just as a funny aside, she decided to pass it on and pay for the person behind. And the person behind ordered like $17.
Oh, no.
Like $17 worth of stuff. And she was like, what? I had a $3 coffee. But it doesn't have to be something like that. But just a little random act of kindness. It just takes the focus off of you, and you really feel good giving something to somebody else. Another thing is unplugging, and that means just like getting away from anything like a phone or a computer or even a TV, and just, enjoying that quiet time, or just not gravitating towards your phone. Because I'm guilty of this too. Like first thing in the morning, I pick up my phone and I'm looking at all the alerts on my page. Like, oh, I have 5 messages on Facebook or an Instagram, direct message, or oh my gosh, I have 25 things in my email inbox. And that starts the day off kind of like on a bad tone, a negative tone, just because you're stressed from the get-go. So if you can just kind of like put your phone in another room or put it away, get up and do something enjoyable first. Maybe you're going to pray or meditate or go for a walk or just have a cup of coffee. But just unplugging is very helpful. I find that even not first thing in the morning, but I'll go down a rabbit hole of social media, and I'll be on Instagram for like an hour. And again, like I don't even...
Or sometimes there's links that, you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook, and then, there's an ad and you click on the link and then it takes you here. And yeah, it is a huge time suck, and we're all guilty of it. And the other thing I think we talked about in other episodes was getting like an old school alarm clock, because that's what happens to me. I use my phone as my alarm. So I pick up my phone to shut off the alarm, and I put it on the other side of the room. So I have to actually get out of bed, which is probably good. But then my phone's in my hand and I start looking on it immediately. So I think that's something I'm going to try in the new year, is getting an old school alarm, turning my phone off at night, which is going to decrease some of that radiation, and, just fight the urge to immediately wake up and look at social media or messages. And yeah, it starts your day a little stressful.
Yeah. We've talked before about like, trying to be present with our family too. And, I have had, embarrassingly so, I've had my son say to me, when are you going to play with me? Because I'm looking at my phone. And like, seriously, who am I even looking at on Instagram?
And my 11-year-old has grabbed my phone out of my hand.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. And plus, I'm trying to set an example for them. I don't want them on there. I mean, they're at the age now where they're starting to get technology, and I don't want my kids on their phone all the time. So what kind of example am I setting when it's always in my hand? But again, with this business that I do, it's part of my job, and I try to explain that to them. But I need to get better, too, about setting some boundaries with the technology, for sure.
Right. That is so true, because it is part of our job, too. And it's hard. But even for us, I think the lines blur, because, I'll be looking at one thing and then like I get a notification that kind of like pops down at the top of the screen or something. And then I am, clicking, like Laurie said, clicking on a link and whatever. Just it takes you away from just being present, and just adds to the stress. There's like, no, you don't need to be on social media for that long. Even if it is your job, you really don't. You just need to take breaks. Yeah, boundaries, of course. Yeah. So I'm just going to list off a couple other things, because I know I'm talking a lot, but other things we talked about. Now, these are things that might be nice for you, but might not be. But we talked about getting a mani or pedi. I get a pedicure maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks. I like it, but I'm not going to do it more than that. Taking a nap, which is funny to me because there's no way I could ever do that. But on the rare chance that my son would fall asleep on me or something, and I can close my eyes, that feels pretty good. So if you're able to, maybe even on a weekend, schedule a nap. Go to bed early. We talked about that too. That is not to be taken lightly, because it affects your mood in general.
And that is, I have to say, as I'm getting older, this is like an awesome Friday night for me, because, or even a Saturday night, like my kids don't have homework, so I don't have to make sure that they're done with that. Now, I understand what's coming is when my kids are out till 11 o'clock at night and I have to pick them up or wait for them to come home. I'm not quite there yet. So I am taking advantage of the weekends, my wild and crazy Friday or Saturday night, getting to bed early, because it's the only time I can really do it anymore.
I know. And it sounds so lovely to me too. Laurie and I are beyond the bar hopping stages.
It's sad when you're so excited to go to bed on a Saturday night. It's like, this is great. I look forward to it.
It is. I know. Other things you can do are just chug some water. It's, great first thing in the morning, but the reason behind that is that hydration actually improves our mood and increase our energy. So sometimes when you're feeling fatigued and run down, it could just be that you need some more water. So just chug like an 8-ounce glass of water or something, and you might be surprised at how much better that makes you feel. In the past, we've talked about watching a funny show or a video, even if you don't have time for like a Netflix show or comedy on TV, just watching some YouTube is kind of fun too. Yeah.
Yesterday, a friend sent me the Saturday Night Live. Sometimes the worst is the best, or something like that. The Christmas. Oh my goodness, guys, this is comic relief through the Christmas season, and even after Christmas, it's going to be a great thing to watch, because it pretty much sums up what's going on in everyone's houses. It's so funny. I love it. So great laugh. I highly recommend it.
That's so funny, because Jim and I went to bed last night, and he was he had recorded Saturday Night Live, and we didn't see it. And he was cracking up. I had my earbuds in because I was actually watching Netflix on my phone, but I'm like, what are you laughing at? And then, we watched it. It's hilarious. Matt Damon was the host. Yeah, check it out. It is something like,
there's a clip of it. Yeah. I think it's even the worst is the best or whatever. Yeah. It was all over the internet yesterday, so easy to find.
Yeah, this is definitely a good one. Yeah. So just a few more from me, and then I'm going to turn it over to Laurie. We talked about going for a walk outside. By the way, walking was the third thing that Neil Pasricha said was guaranteed to increase your happiness, going for a brisk walk. Calling a friend, coloring is so, what is so funny now that my kids are in preschool and they'll bring coloring pages home and they have coloring books. I love to color. And I know they make adult coloring books too. I have a cousin who is like, she makes these gorgeous things just with these adult coloring books and colored pencils. But, I'm just, happy to use a little box of Crayola crayons with my kids. And my kids think it's funny that I like to color, they'll color for like a few minutes, but I'm like, let's come back. Let's color for 15, 20 minutes. I find it really therapeutic. It's just, I don't know, maybe it takes me back to my childhood, but again, it just like takes my mind off of other things. Listening to music can be a really good one. And this is so individual and personal, whatever kind of music you like. I have written in my notes that one of the things, my husband cracks up about this, but I love 80s music. And I think it is, again, it's because, I was born in the 70s, but I'm a child of the 80s and just love some good 80s music. Sometimes it is, yeah. Sometimes I even put on the 80s channel on our TV. They have like, I don't know, streaming. I think, what do we have?
Music TV or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah, something like that. Or I'll have, I don't want to say Alexa because I'm afraid Laurie's will start talking, but that device. But I'll ask her to play 80s music for me. And sometimes when I'm stressed, when I was planning my wedding, and it was like all on my shoulders, Jim and I got like engaged and married within 6 months, and I was super stressed, and I would turn on classical music in the car, and that was so calming for me. And then sometimes, just because I love church and having grown up in a church setting with my dad being a pastor, I will listen to worship music. And sometimes that just, again, like kind of takes me out of my own head. And to go along with music, dance. Sometimes my boys and I like to have little dance parties at home. We're just being really silly. I personally, now Laurie would be different because she is very coordinated, but I personally don't like to go out in public and dance because I do not look very put together at all and was not a dancer growing up. But I think, just like whatever, just being silly and doing a little dance party, even if it's a dance party for one, doing that, turning on some cool tunes at home and doing that.
And that's the best with little kids. I miss the dance parties. That was like, okay, daily, because when they started getting out of control, it's like reel it in, put on some music, call it a dance party. And so, and this time of year, we start getting out like our videos from when the girls were little. We don't do that anymore. And we probably should, because they still do a lot of really funny things. But we just look back on when they were little and laugh. But I swear, every video is a dance party. And I miss those days. Oh, they would whip out all their moves, and they're just so cute.
It's so funny because they're so awkward. At least my kids they're so awkward, but it's hilarious too. And then you're laughing too. And then the last thing I was going to mention is eating a snack, which, again, it kind of sounds weird. And Laurie and I, we're not talking about like binge eating a bag of chips. It's not what I'm talking about. But sometimes it could be that your blood sugar could be low, if you haven't been eating very regularly. But eating a snack and having a little bit of protein can help with satiation and making you feel like your tummy's full. But also protein helps to boost your serotonin levels, which is that feel-good hormone. So I don't know, having like a little turkey wrap or a piece of cheese or a little thing of yogurt sometimes can help just, it's a little form of self-care and just making sure that your body's nourished at the same time.
Yeah, and as I was talking about my week being a little crazy last week, I did have a moment in the middle of the week where I sat down at lunch and kind of made myself like a little meal, kind of what I would put together for my kids. And I know as moms, we don't do that. Like, especially, I'm sure, a lot of times we'll make a dinner, but when I really think about breakfast and lunch in a mom's world, a lot of times it's just kind of grab something. So I sat down with a plate at lunchtime and I had like a little fruit on the side. I made myself a little sandwich. I had a couple little wheat pretzels and it was like what I would have packed for my kids. And I thought, I just did this for myself. So yeah, I mean, that was like it was a 5-minute thing, but it was such a form of self-care for me that particular day when I knew I was going to be running from morning till night. And just took that little moment to do that. And it was kind of a big deal. So take care of yourself like how, the same way you would take care of your kids. That's kind of a good way to put it. And I think I said that back when we were talking about getting sick. You're the mom and nobody might, there might not be anyone to take care of you. So take care of yourself the way you would take care of someone else, because we don't do that. Oh. We do not do that enough. Another thing that is really good for self-care and very quick, I love my essential oils, but, one little drop of oil on the bottom of your feet or in your palms to inhale or diffusing as you're working and going about your day, or, adding a drop to your skincare. I feel like that is such a big piece of self-care for me. And a lot of it's because I am educated on the oils and I know that what power that one little drop of oil has and how many great benefits it's giving my body. So it took me 2 minutes tops, to incorporate that in. And I did something really, really good for myself. And not only that, there's a lot of oils, like we were talking about the lavender oil for the bath, that have the power to calm your mind. There's science behind there. They work. They actually, again, if you're using quality oils, you can get those kind of therapeutic benefits. So they're a really wonderful tool. And getting dressed up sometimes can be fun. Staying in your PJs sometimes can be fun. I go back to, it depends on that day. And when you've had a week in yoga pants, staying in your PJs doesn't feel real good. When you've had a week of getting dressed up and heading out into the world, the thought of PJs and cozy socks is like such a wonderful thing. So just getting in touch with yourself and knowing what's going to make you feel good at that time is so important. And, sometimes even just wearing a nice pair of underwear or a nice bra can totally change your perspective on yourself and make you feel totally different. Kim and I have talked about celebrating the launch here of our podcast in January. And I think we're going to put on a nice dress and go out with our men. And that's really something to look forward to, because I definitely don't do enough of that anymore. And something like that can be a huge form of self-care and just getting back in touch with who you are, because we get lost in our day-to-day lives and all the people we're responsible for, a lot. So it's important to kind of take a step back and do that sometimes. So I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
And then, trying to just be positive in your day-to-day and not complain. We all have things that we could complain about, absolutely. But we all also have things that are good. And it's just, going back to Kim's gratitude journal and just having that positive attitude, glass half full type thing can go a really long way with your attitude and view of life.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in too. I read a book called A Complaint-Free World, and I actually have it on Audible too, which is another thing. Like if you don't have time to read, sometimes listening to a book is kind of therapeutic. But this Complaint-Free World challenged you to not complain for, I think it was 21 days straight. It was either 21 or 30. I'm thinking it was 21, but it is harder than you think. It really, really is. Like trying not to complain. And the guy that wrote the book sells these bracelets, and supposedly if you complain, you move it to the other wrist.
I heard about those. Yeah. I also heard about one of those, and I think it was some fellow IIN grads actually that I heard about on the IIN podcast. They created bracelets. and this is not the same topic that you were just talking about, but same concept. They created, I love water, and we always talk about drinking water so much. They created these bracelets where you move a charm or something over for every glass of water that you drink during the day, and it helps you track your water, but it's like this pretty jewelry. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
same
cool.
concept, but different thing.
Go. Sorry to interrupt you, Laurie. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I love it. We both have so much to say. And we also are aware that we're like almost at an hour here, and we're trying to keep these podcasts, short and sweet. But this is a really fun topic, and, lots to talk about. But we're going to try to wrap it up here soon, just, for the sake of time. But toxic friends and toxic relationships. We went into this a little bit on a previous episode about detoxing, but that is really something to take a look at as far as taking care of yourself, because that'll constantly beat you down. No matter how much self-care you implement, it can be undone really easily with just, exposing yourself to these types of situations. And some we can't control, but some we can. So the ones that you can, take a hard look at that and smile. And you know what? Even if you're around one of your toxic people, smile because that's going to, be contagious. We hear that, but it's so true. I taught Sunday school for a few years, and, we did a project every year. One of our things was, teaching the kids about pay it forward. So I always had them do an exercise where they got in a line, and, the person in the front would just turn. It's such a simple thing, but turn and smile at the person behind them, which would make them smile. And so they'd turn and look at the person behind them and would go all the way down the row, just passing on the smiles. And I said, now go out and do that in the world, because when you smile at someone, they're going to smile back at you. And, that can go a really long way to boost your attitude and your mood, and just feel connected to people, because we're always looking at devices and we don't make eye contact with anybody anymore. So just make an effort to do that, and it'll change a lot of things for you. And, inspirational quotes are always great. They're everywhere now with Pinterest and Instagram. They're never hard to find a good inspirational quote. So just find what resonates with you. I'm always screenshotting them, so I kind of have them in my camera roll, and I look at them in moments that I feel I need them. And again, different quotes resonate with different people. So there's no lack of them out there in the world. But another thing that can be really powerful is just allowing yourself to cry. So maybe you come upon a quote that really touches you, have that moment, have that cry, or you're having a bad day, like let it all out, we don't have to be so strong and tough all the time. We can kind of just let ourselves go sometimes and feel it, because then you can move on. So, vision boards too are a good way to keep in focus of your goals. I have one in my office. It's right next to my desk, and it started as kind of like, these are all the things I want to do, especially, with my business and again, all my ideas. But I've found I've been adding to it, like once I do these things, and it's become like my inspiration board. And it's also become in those moments of doubt, or, the self-doubt of, oh, I can't do this, or something didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I look at that board, because now it's become like part of like my achievements. And these were my goals, and these are the things I've achieved. And it gives me the motivation to keep going. So, vision boards can be a very, very powerful tool and a very great form of self-care. So something that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And again, just in the effort of respecting time, I'm kind of running through a list, and they don't all mesh together, but you get the idea here. But spending time with your pet can be a wonderful way to just take a moment to connect and just let go of some of that stress. A nice glass of wine and some dark chocolate. We talked about how binging can be bad and all of that, but I think that's a guilty pleasure that has some health benefits too. Red wine, dark chocolate, And then like a gratitude jar is another cool one. Same type concept as the gratitude journal, but along the lines of just trying to stay as positive as you can on a daily basis is so wonderful. And another big one that I could talk for a really long time about, but I won't, is decluttering your space because everyone's different too, but I know myself, it just makes me feel stressed out. And I have a daughter who is like a hoarder for real. I just opened under the cabinet under her sink in her bathroom this morning, and there's like 100 toilet paper rolls. I'm like, who's saving these? Why are you doing this? Now, I will say she's
like the empty rolls.
Yes. Like she's so creative and she's a crafter. So I mean, she has made in the past like binoculars from them or like cool things that she plays Barbies with. But I mean, we do not need that many toilet paper rolls. So things like that, it makes me crazy. I try to respect her personality. But the clutter drives me insane. So, just taking a time to clear out a closet or clear off your workspace, and it can really create space in your mind, which is important for self-care. And then, just positive affirmations and notebooks to write down either your grand ideas like I talked about earlier, or just kind of keeping a to-do list. I know for me, sometimes just writing it down can get it out of my head and I can stop thinking about it. But that also can go too far to the other extreme, especially when you are a person who's totally overbooked. Because I got myself in a little trouble with to-do lists back in the day as well. I do remember laying in my bed and like a sea of to-do lists crying because I just got myself totally overwhelmed and was kind of being run by my to-do list. So, jot them down to get them out of your head, but take a look at it too and ask yourself, is this realistic? It's a good tool for gauging if you're overbooking your life too. So, just keeping a notebook around for ideas and to-dos and all of those things is a great way to take care of your mind and your sanity.
Okay. So yeah, we're kind of at the end of our time here. There are so many things that we could mention, but I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up if that's okay with you, Laurie. So hopefully you've gained some practical tips for self-care, and just know that, what self-care for one person is different for another person. Just do what resonates with you, and more importantly, just, spend some time with yourself thinking about the things that you love and go and do that. And that'll make you a happier person. So for more from Kim, you can go to kimmaravich.com. For more from Laurie, go to simplyempoweredllc.com. You can join our Facebook group, which is a Whole New You podcast community. And we also have a newly created Instagram page, which is also a Whole New You podcast. We'd love for you to follow us on Instagram. And if you have any questions for us or ideas for the show, you can email us at contact@awholenewyoupodcast.com. Have a great week.